This is John Lauder, host of The Cheap Seats. Thanks for listening to the following broadcast on Public House Media.
Hello everyone, it's No Filter Friday on Public House Media. We're doing a different setup this week because I have been basically kicked out of the Facebook Live edition from my laptop. And you know what? We also got audits across Public House Media this week. Something like that. I don't know. It's crunch time. I don't know what day it is. But apparently it is time to choose a new microphone and possible camera setup. So basically here we are. So let me take a second and share the show. So you know what? We turned around and I'm doing a new mic this week, a new lav mic as opposed to like my regular headphone setup. David Bobke, I sure hope that's you. And we're doing same lighting setup but a different camera setup. So maybe the front facing camera on my phone will be more. Oh, is that a lens flare? Oh, great, perfect. So we're gonna try to adjust to a new way of doing things, or at least try to do something new. I'm sitting here with my LaCroix of my life. Let's see if this is coming up. Let's see. Sounds a bit hot. I hope it's me too. Okay, great. I'll put this down. David, we're gonna do a thing. I'm going to move this mic down, and you're going to tell me, how does that sound? As I pick the fuzz off of this mic. Does that sound any better? Further down? A little further away from my, from my loudness? My forever and perpetual loudness? Hopefully that sounds better before we have to experiment on this show. We're breaking boundaries, kids. We're breaking boundaries. Also, I can see other people coming in. Can you leave me a comment so I know it's you, please? Or who's coming in? Who's coming in to No Filter Friday? Send me a comment. I want to know that you're there. I see oh, there it is. I see maybe, possibly. Yes, sounds better. Thank you, David Bobke. You are a lamb. It's time for tea. Posting. Dunsies. Okay. I shared that to my other page, so maybe people will get a nice notification. That's the hope anyway. That is the hope. Okay, so I've shared. Hopefully you've shared. Also send me a comment, please and thank you. Please and thank you. So I know that you're coming in. All right, so let's get into it. I have talked about on the show that we're going to get into more international editions of the metoo movement, which I think is super, super important, especially because they're not talking. And the best way to solve problems is to communicate. You have to name the puppy. Now that we've named the puppy, we have to talk about the puppy. So I found an interesting story that came out of South Korea, that the mayor of Busan has decided to resign over some #MeToo sexual assault allegations. So we'll go through that first. And then we'll get down into how South Korea deals with these things, because it's like so polite and so Asian. I feel like there's a lot to learn. And then, because they're sexually repressed Asian societies, they got some freak tendencies. So we'll get down to that. Later in the article, I think. So let's get to this, kids, shall we? We shall. Close it, McAfee. Nobody wants to see that. Okay. So the Busan mayor, his name is ohkeo-don, stepped down on Thursday after admitting sexual harassment of a civil servant. Oh, who is affiliated with the Minju Party, the second official from the ruling camp to step down over sexual misconduct after former I can't pronounce this. A province in the south of South Korea. I'm not going to butcher that word by saying it. Governor An Hee-jung resigned in 2018. The latest scandal has left the mayorship of Korea's second largest city up for grabs and reignited controversy over the ethical standards of ruling party bigwigs. Oh, in a press conference on Thursday morning, admitted there was inappropriate physical contact. Oh, we'll be fine. This is where I think we can learn some things. With a female employee, I take responsibility and I'm stepping down, he said. Oh reportedly summoned the woman to his office on April 7th and touched her inappropriately during their 5-minute meeting. The victim reportedly abused a sexual violence hotline in southern Port City. She apparently obtained a letter from Oh pledging to step down by the end of this month and had the document notarized. Ooh, she had it notarized. She was not out here playing games. Note to self, I will put that in the, whenever I get around to doing this how-to book, notarization is going to be maybe not a chapter, but it's definitely going to get a few pages. The Minju party issued an apology 3 hours after Oh resigned. Minju Secretary General Yoon Ho-jung said, "We bow our heads in apology to the public," and added that the party ethics committee meeting on Friday morning will expel Oh. Deputy Mayor Byung-Sun-won will serve as acting mayor until a by-election, serving as a region, I guess. By-election in April next year, the Minju Party's charter stipulates that it will not field a candidate in a district or a region where one of its elected officials loses his or her position due to a grave transgression. So I'm assuming this is a grave transgression. Opposition lawmakers voiced suspicion that the Minju Party told Oh to wait until after the general election earlier this month to announce his resignation. United Future Party spokesman Kim Sung-won said, "We need to identify which officials are behind the decision for Oh to step down after the general elections," but the Minju Party claims it had no idea of Oh's misconduct until his resignation. Up or down? But doesn't that sound like a much better situation than what we've been doing in the U.S.? Like, he admitted it, he apologized nicely, he stepped down from his position, they have a plan to have somebody, in his office for the interim and to the election. Like, there's a little hush-hush, sweep it under the rug corruption in there, but, like, not nearly as much as we see in the United States. I feel like we have a lot to learn from this guy. I feel like we have a lot to learn. Maybe not from that dude specifically, because he somehow groped somebody. He sexually harassed somebody in a 5-minute meeting. What does that say about yourself? 5 minutes, sir. What are you gonna do? Okay, so let's get down to this, the other part of this story, which this is where we turn to the Cardi B level of freak of leather pajamas. Okay, so I'm going to reread you, this is the Busan mayor's, which Busan's a really big city, and South Korea is really, really fabulous, and Busan is also super fabulous. So this is not some little podunk place we're talking about. This is, sophistication. So this is his full apology, or like step down speech. "I made an unnecessary physical contact with the person during a short 5-minute meeting," said Mr. Oh said during a news conference on Thursday, as he bowed deeply before cameras and fought back tears. "I have realized that this could amount to a sexual assault," he added. "Regardless of the severity of my act, I admit that it cannot be forgiven. I apologize to the victim and I will live the rest of my life in repentance." End quote. That's a very nice apology. In my opinion, that's a very nice apology. I feel like other people that have been caught up in these sorts of things could take some notes. Maybe he just has a really good speechwriter. But I'm going to take this as a win for the #MeToo movement on a global scale. Okay, this is where it gets crazy. The #MeToo movement took hold in South Korea in January 2018 when Seo, a female prosecutor, appeared, I can't even begin to pronounce her name, a female prosecutor appeared on TV to say that she was groped at a funeral. Who gets hard at a funeral? That was like a Will Ferrell joke. He was kidding. That was comedy. Who gets horny at a funeral? in 2010 by a male superior who banished her to an obscure job after she filed a complaint. I told you, Cardi B level freakiness. The higher-ranking prosecutor was 2 years in prison in January last year for abuse of power. He could not be charged with sexual assault because the 3-year statute of limitations had expired. Their statute of limitations in South Korea is tiny. But in January, the Supreme Court ordered a lower court to reconsider Mr. On's conviction. Then, the following March, a former Secretary Ah Hee-jung, a rising star in the Democratic Party and a presidential hopeful, went on television to accuse the politician of repeatedly raping her while she was governor of that South province that we talked about earlier. Mr. An resigned and was sentenced to 3.5 years in prison for raping his former secretary. The decision of the two women to go public with their accusations was, at the time, extraordinary for South Korea, where men dominate upper echelons of strictly hierarchical society and victims of sexual violence often stay silent for fear of shame and retaliation. Shame has an entirely different face in Asia. Entirely different face. It is a whole other ball of wax. So keep that in mind. The women have since come forward with accusations of sexual abuse against an array of prominent men, including theater directors, politicians, professors, religious leaders, and a former coach for the national speed skating team. How you get a man whore on a speed skating team? What is going on over there? Many of the accused have since apologized and resigned from their positions, and several have faced criminal charges. I still don't know how you get horny at a funeral. I don't get it. I don't understand how you stand there and look at a body being lowered into the ground and just be like, cop a feel. Like, what is wrong with people? It's so strange. It's so crazy strange. Like, I have no idea why you would do this. But apparently they get real results. Despite their very short statute of limitations time, they're getting results over in South Korea, so they get points. They get points from me on their momentum building and their swift justice in the hashtag MeToo movement in South Korea. So that is all we will talk about for this episode. I will leave you to another week of crazy where we will, of course, bring it back to Hollywood. But I thought it was important to talk about that because it can't all be doom and gloom around here. And I say that not just for this show, not for just No Filter Friday, and not just for the hashtag MeToo movement in general, but for everything. It cannot all be doom and gloom. You have to find positivity somewhere. And to me, I think that's one of the most solid apologies that I've seen come up with the hashtag MeToo movement. Domestic, abroad, Earth, human beings, aliens, all of them. I think he definitely won the apology game. And, certain people could take notes from that. I'm taking notes for sure. So I will see you all next week for another domestic version of No Filter Friday. And I'm going to finish the rest of my LaCroix and have a biotin gummy because these are so cute and adorable. Look, it's a heart. I just painted my nails Barbie pink. So check out other shows on Public House Media like Choose to Rise and Your Life Matters and See Jane Sell and Confessions of a Military Spouse. All far and above more uplifting than this show, more dark and dirty. And I will see you all next week. David Boggy says I'm fairly impressed with the apology. Right? Me too. Me too. Hashtag me too. I'm also impressed with this apology. So I will see you all next week. Bye.